Hello friends, today's video will be a bit longer in comparison to my other videos. I'm going to talk about Mushoku Tensei, which is one of my favorite light novels. I constructed this type of lore iceberg with 5 layers, from stuff that most people probably know to stuff that is a bit more subtle or buried in the light novels, and at the end I will also talk about some mysteries, theories that exist. Because the world of Mushoku Tensei is pretty big, I just picked stuff that I found the most interesting, so there's definitely a lot more out there. So if you have other interesting things to share about the world of Mushoku Tensei, feel absolutely free to drop it in the comments section. I will also give a short spoiler warning here. It will definitely contain many spoilers, especially when I go into the deeper layers, but I will give another warning when I'm touching topics that are right now only in the light novels. Layer 1. Rudio's past life and reincarnation. Before becoming Rudio's Grey Rat, our protagonist was an unnamed 34-year-old Japanese shut-in who had completely withdrawn from society. Years of bullying and humiliation during high school left him traumatized, causing him to lock himself away in his parents' home for nearly 2 decades. During that time, he rarely left his room, spent most of his days consuming different kinds of media and becoming increasingly disconnected from the outside world. After both of his parents passed away, his siblings finally forced him to leave the house. While wandering aimlessly afterwards, he sacrifices his life to save a group of teenagers from an oncoming truck. His death leads to his reincarnation as Rudio's Grey Rat in the six-faced world. In a classic isekai fashion, Rudius remembers his entire previous life and regrets from birth. This allows him to begin studying magic, history and languages as an infant, giving him a massive advantage over ordinary children. His reincarnation is also the catalyst for one of the series' biggest mysteries, why he was brought into this world in the first place. Sylphie, Roxy and Eris. We have the 3 heroines, Roxy, Sylphie and Eris. Each represent a different stage of Rudio's growth. Roxy is his first magic teacher and inspires his love of adventure after helping him overcome his fear of leaving home, and is later a big pillar of support after the sad ending of the teleportation labyrinth. Sylphiette is his childhood friend and his first emotional connection, teaching him trust and companionship. And Eris begins as a spoiled noble girl but gradually becomes Rudio's equal through hardship and travel. Rather than simply existing only as romantic interests, each character has independent goals, strengths and personal development, so their influence shaped Rudio's life before romance became a bigger part of the story. Teleportation Incident. Teleportation Incident is a mana calamity and the main event that changes the course of the story early on, setting up many major storylines that follow. Shortly after Rudio's 10th birthday celebration, a massive sphere of magical energy suddenly appears over the Fitua region before exploding in a flash of light. Everyone caught within its radius is instantly teleported to a random location across the world. Rudius and Eris are transported to the Demon Continent. Thousands of others disappear without warning. Families are torn apart, entire villages are left empty, and the rest struggles to understand what exactly happened. Dead End. After arriving on a demon continent, Rudius, Eris and the support warrior Rudyard form an adventuring party known as Dead End. The name is intentionally chosen because it matches the infamous reputation of the support race, allowing Rudyard to confront the world's prejudice head-on rather than hiding his identity. As they journey across the continent, the group takes on quests, protects villages, and slowly earns the trust of people who have feared the Superts for generations. Their travels are the main story of the second half of Season 1 and introduce viewers to many different cultures and regions of the six-faced world. Each member also has their own nickname: Mad Dog Eris, Guard Dog Rudyard, and the Cattle Master Rudyard, that is in reality Rudius. In order to improve Rudyard's and subsequently Supert's reputation, Rudius would introduce himself as Rudyard of Dead End whenever he did something amicable, and as Rudius when he did something bad or got into trouble. As a result, his nickname was mixed up and mistakenly spread as Rudyard. The Superts and Rudyard's reputation. Especially early in the story, Rudyard Superdia is one of the strongest warriors that Rudius has met, but what holds him back is the world's fear of his race. The Supert tribe is this tribal race of infamous warriors originally from the Demon Continent. They were manipulated during the Laplace War and became infamous after using cursed spears that drove many of them into madness. Centuries later, the stigma remains and people still believe every Supert is a ruthless killer. Their distinctive characteristics are their emerald green hair and a unique oval-shaped red gemstone embedded in their foreheads. Ruijerd dedicates his life to changing this perception. Throughout his travels with that end, he goes out of his way to protect strangers, refuse unnecessary violence, and demonstrates that the supports are not monsters. His quiet determination makes him one of the most respected characters. The 7 Great Powers. The 7 Great Powers is a ranking for the 7 strongest individuals in the world, a selection of 7 people that came to exist following the end of the Second Human-Demon War. These fighters are considered the pinnacle of martial and magical strength. The ranking is not strictly based on objective measurements, but the placement also considers other parameters like political influence, reputation, past achievements, and fear. Hitogami. Hitogami, also known as the Man God, first appears to Rudeus in a white void that exists outside the normal world. Presenting himself as a friendly advisor, he offers guidance at key moments throughout Rudeus' life, often steering him toward decisions that seem beneficial for him. However, Hitogami doesn't explain his true motives. His advice almost always comes with some consequences, leaving both Rudeus and us questioning whether he is genuinely helping. Paul's family drama. Paul Greyrat, Rudeus' father, plays a major role in grounding the series emotionally. While he is first presented to us as a skilled swordsman and caring parent, his flaws gradually become apparent. During the teleportation incident, Paul is separated from his wife Zenith and daughter Norn, believing at first that his entire family may have been lost. As the story progresses, Paul's search for his family becomes a central emotional thread. His reunion with Rudeus is especially complicated as both characters struggle with guilt, misunderstanding, and unmet expectations. Paul's imperfections, particularly his past mistakes with women and responsibility, are in direct contrast with his desire to protect his family at any cost. When Paul reunites with Rudeus, you are sure that Rudeus had seen his message, or at the very least pieced together that they weren't the only ones teleported. So when he found out they'd just been adventuring across a continent and never gave a thought as to what everyone else was doing, he got angry and his current mental state didn't help at all. This was made worse by the fact Rudy decided to play up the story a bit and made it sound like something casual and easy. It pushed Paul over the edge, unleashed feelings he'd been pushing back. It was also a sort of snapback to reality for Rudy, and he even admits as much. The fact is, he really didn't think about it at all, not aside from getting himself and Eris back home. But on a positive note, at the end they were still able to reconcile. Rather than portraying him as a perfect father figure, the story uses Paul to explore themes of regrets, responsibility, and reconciliation. Fitz is Sylphie. I mean, you might not believe me, but Fitz, the silent and highly capable bodyguard serving under Princess Ariel at the Royal Academy, is actually Sylphiette in disguise. After being separate from Rudeus during the teleportation incident, Sylphiette suffers from memory loss and is later taken in by Ariel, who gives her the identity Fitz and assigns her as a personal guard. To hide her identity, she wears special magic-reducing equipment, including sunglasses and enchanted clothing that suppresses her appearance and presence. Because of the disguise, even Rudeus fails to recognize her at the beginning when they meet again at the academy. Their eventual reunion is an important turning point in Rudeus' personal development and romantic life, and also his ED problem. Layer 2. Chantless Magic, Silent Casting. One of Rudeus' greatest strengths and first things that make him stand out from other magicians is his ability to cast magic without speaking incantations, always called chantless or silent casting. Most magicians rely on long verbal chants to activate spells, but Rudeus discovers as a child that if he understands how a spell functions, he can manipulate mana directly without reciting the words. This dramatically increases his casting speed and flexibility, allowing him to react much faster than ordinary mages. Although silent casting appears almost effortless once Rudeus masters it, the ability is actually considered extraordinarily rare. Later in the series, readers learn why so few people are capable of achieving it despite its obvious advantages. Potentially everyone can do chantless casting if they learn how to do it when they are at a young age. The reason chantless mages are so rare is because it is literally impossible to learn it without help, because you can't be older than 10 and you also need to get the feel of the magic. Six-Faced World. The Six-Faced World is the setting of Mushoku Tensei. It is a world in a hexahedral form where all beings live on its planes. It exists in a die-shaped structure with a total of 6 phases. Each phase is constituted of one world ruled by one god each, with a 7th world of nothingness inside the die structure. North Sword and Water Styles. Swordsmanship in Mushoku Tensei is divided into the 3 major schools: Sword God style, Water God style, and North God style. Each represents a fundamentally different approach to combat. Sword God style focuses on the speed and decisive strikes, often ending fights in a single blow. Water God style emphasizes on the defense, counters, and adaptability, making it effective against unpredictable opponents. The North God style is the most flexible, incorporating deception, tactics, and unconventional techniques. These styles are not just combat styles, but also philosophies that shape how the warriors think and fight. Many of the world's strongest fighters specialize in one of these styles or develop hybrid approaches. Turning points. Throughout Mushoku Tensei, specific chapters are explicitly called or titled Turning Point. These moments represent major shifts in the story, often introducing a big event that permanently alters Rudeus' life and the direction of the story. What makes them especially memorable is that as a reader you quickly learn to associate the phrase turning point with a shocking revelation, unexpected tragedies, or any life-changing decisions. Over time, simply seeing the words turning point becomes enough to make any fan nervous and sweaty. Battle aura. Battle aura, toki, or fighting spirit is a technique used to amplify physical capabilities of the individual to an extreme. It does not have a specific training regime. People will naturally come to understand how it works and how to wear it the more they train their body. In the case with Rudeus, he is unable to manifest it. This is attributed to the Laplace factor, as Laplace was also unable to use toki. Paul Gaiden. Paul Gaiden is a short side story that is split in 2 parts that explores Paul Greyrat's younger years before the events of Mushoku Tensei. While the main series portrays Paul as a flawed but loving father, Paul Gaiden shows how he became the man readers first meet at the start of Mushoku Tensei. The story recontextualizes his flaws, such as his impulsiveness, womanizing, and emotional immaturity. Rather than excusing his behavior, the story demonstrates that Paul spent years trying and oftentimes failing to become a better person. Paul Gaiden makes his sacrifice during the Labyrinth arc even more heartbreaking, as you gain deeper appreciation for everything he experienced before becoming Rudeus' father. Roxy's spin-off manga. Mushoku Tensei Roxy Gets Serious is a spin-off manga of Mushoku Tensei. The story focuses on Roxy Migurdia. It is a prequel that explores her life and struggles before she meets Rudeus. Roxy is a member of the Migurdia tribe, a group known for their magical abilities and telepathy. However, Roxy is born without telepathic abilities. Because she cannot communicate like the rest of her people, she lives a very lonely, isolated life in her village. Her luck changes when a traveling witch visits and takes young Roxy on as a magical apprentice. She learns magic, ventures into the outside world, and becomes an adventurer and later a student at the Renoir Magic Academy. Kishirika, Kishirisu, and the Demon Eyes. Kishirika Kishirisu is a member of the Immortal Demon Clan and the former Empress of the Demon Continent. Despite her childish and unserious personality, Kishirika is of course one of the oldest beings in the world, with knowledge and influence that far exceed her current appearance. She possesses a unique ability known as Demon Eyes. These eyes grant various supernatural perceptions depending on the type, such as seeing mana flow, future foresight, or hidden truths. Kishirika possesses 12 of them, but only 7 of them are further described. She is able to transfer demon eyes to others, which is how characters like Ghislaine obtain powerful abilities such as the Demon Eye of Foresight. These abilities are extremely rare and highly sought after, but their origins are not fully explained. Mastering Demon Eyes requires precise control of the flow of mana, and most users are unable to fully control them throughout their lives. Rudeus was given the Foresight Eye as a thanks for buying her food, which allows one to see into the future and see possible outcomes. The further one tries to see, the more outcomes are shown to them, but these outcomes become blurred together. Later in the story, she gave Rudeus also the Clairvoyant Eye for giving her a donut. Elinalee's Curse. Elinalee, Dragon Road, is a former member of Paul's party, cursed with an affliction that forces her to regularly have quality time, which sounds pretty wild if you hear it for the first time. She is afflicted with a curse inherited from being trapped in a labyrinth magic crystal, similar to the situation of Zenith. This curse causes mana to accumulate within her body, which must be crystallized through receiving male sperm. If she fails to receive it, the mana bulges too dangerously within her, ultimately leading to her death. As a result, she produces a mana crystal once per month. During pregnancy, her condition can be temporarily subsided as the mana flowed into the unborn child instead, eliminating the need for intercourse to avoid death. As a result, her children born inherit exceptionally high mana capacity without exception. Thanks to Cliff's research, he develops a magical device that suppresses the curse, allowing her to go over a year without intercourse. Because the device requires a high amount of magic power, Rudius has to charge it himself. Layer 3. Just a short disclaimer here that from here on most of the stuff has not been animated yet when this video comes out, which is probably right around the release of season 3. It is mostly stuff from the light novels and side stories, so if you are an anime only watcher and don't want spoilers, you should probably stop around here and come back later when season 3 is fully released or you read the light novels. Orsted's Curse. Orsted, the dragon god and one of the 7 great powers, possesses an aura that causes nearly everyone who encounters him to feel overwhelming fear and hostility. This is known as the Curse of Fear. The curse makes it almost impossible for him to form genuine relationships, forcing him to rely on contracts, exceptional individuals, or people who are naturally resistant to curses. Rudius' unusually calm behavior around Orsted initially surprised him, what we saw in Turning Point 1. Laplace factor and Rudius' giant mana capacity. Rudius is born with an exceptionally large mana capacity, far beyond what is normal for humans. This is first hinted at when he begins training magic as a child and quickly realizes that he can store and release far more mana than most adult magicians. The reason for this enormous mana pool is revealed to be a combination of different factors. Rudius was born with the Laplace factor, which is a unique trait and capability or sometimes bodily appearance a rare percentage of people are born with. It is the result of the demon god Laplace sending his soul from the past into the present by having attached itself to multiple bodies in preparation of his revival. This means that his development as a fetus was influenced for him to become a potential vessel for the demon god Laplace to be reincarnated in. This is also why it was this body that he was reincarnated in, as it did not have a soul of its own and would have otherwise been stillborn. He also begins mana manipulation and training far earlier than anyone else realistically could, effectively compressing years of magical development into early childhood. Characteristics of people with the Laplace factor are increased magic potential and capacity in most cases, in some cases green hair. In most cases they can't wear or have trouble wearing battle aura. In one case increased strength and endurance. And when entering Perugia's castle they emit light particles out of their bodies, in all cases. The Sacred Beast Leo. The Sacred Beast is a rare and highly intelligent magical creature that serves as a guardian figure in certain regions of the world. It is known for its unusual appearance, resembling a large wolf-like animal with distinct mystical traits and heightened perception abilities. Unlike ordinary beasts, the Sacred Beast is capable of recognizing individuals with strong magical potential or unique destinies. It is often treated as a symbol of protection and divine favor in regions where it appears. Later on, Leo gets summoned by Rudius using a magic circle given to him by Perugius, and he becomes Rudius' pet in order to protect Rudius' family, specifically Lara. She is the savior he is destined to protect. Mushoku Tensei Redundancy. Redundancy is a spin-off work of Mushoku Tensei that takes place between the end of the events in both the web novel and light novel, but still before Rudius passes away. It is a collection of stories about various characters the author was not able to focus on in the main story. It has been divided into 8 parts, with each exploring different characters in their following lives. Originally conceived as 9 stories in a whole volume, but the author removed the chapters regarding the main characters Ars and Aisha Greyrat after re-evaluation of the controversial contents. Perugius Dola and Fortress Chaosbreaker. Perugius Dola, the Armored Dragon King, is besides Orsted one of the most powerful and influential figures in Mushoku Tensei. He resides in the floating fortress Chaosbreaker, which itself a relic of ancient dragon civilization and advanced magic technology. Perugius is a member of the dragon race and one of the 7 great powers, though his true strength lies not only in combat ability but also in his accumulated magical knowledge and legendary artifacts. He commands powerful familiars and maintains a strict sense of pride regarding his status and lineage. During the Laplace War, Chaosbreaker is summoned by Perugius, and together with his familiars and other heroes they manage to steal Laplace away, and Perugius is known as the hero of the war. Because of that, the new era was named in his honor the Armored Dragon Era. After growing tired of the life in Asura Kingdom, Perugius left and now travels the world with Chaosbreaker vigilantly watching over any signs of Laplace's revival to defeat him and get revenge for the death of his friends. Despite his intimidating reputation, Perugius is in most cases not antagonistic. He follows his own code of honor and becomes an important figure in the broader political and magical balance of the world. The Fighting God Armor. The Fighting God Armor is one of the most powerful magical artifacts in existence, created during ancient times as a weapon capable of rivaling the strongest beings in the world. It functions as a full-body magical suit that dramatically enhances the wearer's strength, durability, and combat capability. However, the armor is extremely dangerous to use. It consumes enormous amounts of mana and can overwhelm or even destroy weaker users. Because of its immense power, it is treated as a last resort weapon rather than a practical tool. The armor is closely tied to the ancient wars involving the dragon race and remains one of the key factors in the world's power balance. Future Rudius and Time Travel Diary. One of the biggest turning points in Mushoku Tensei occurs when a much older version of Rudius suddenly appears before his younger self. Scarred, exhausted, and carrying the weight of decades of regret, this future Rudius comes from an alternate timeline in which pretty much everything went wrong. In his timeline, Hitogami successfully manipulated events leading to the death of several people Rudius loved. Consumed by grief and desperate to undo his mistakes, future Rudius devoted years to research forbidden magic. Eventually he accomplished what was thought impossible, sending himself back through time to warn his younger self. Because the spell was incomplete, he shortly died after. Along with future Rudius comes his diary. Written over many years, the diary contains the events of the doomed alternate timelines in painful detail. It describes how Hitogami manipulated Rudius into making seemingly harmless decisions that led to devastating consequences. Friends and family die one after another, alliances collapse, and Rudius loses hope as he realizes he has been used by him from the very beginning. Diary is a testimony of events that have already happened in another timeline. It served as a warning and a guide, allowing the younger Rudius to avoid repeating the same mistakes. Jobless Oblige. Jobless Oblige is another side story where we follow the story of Sieghart Saladin Greyrat, Rudius' second son. Sieghart meets Pax Jr. and Sariel Anemoy Asura in Asura school. Pax Jr. asks him if he can help him build a kingdom, but he can't answer him because he thinks that Rudius needs him to marry Sariel and strengthening his ties with Asura Kingdom. And in the end he returns to Runoa, being unemployed for a year, but in the night acts as a moonlight knight, helping people and defeating criminals. And one night Rudius finds him, and after a heartfelt talk he decides to help Pax Jr. leaving Ranoa. Decades later, Pax Jr. builds his kingdom and Sieg becomes the left hand of Pax Jr. as well as the strongest knight. He becomes the 5th 7th great world power, taking the place of death god Randolph. Zenith's consciousness and ability. Zenith has gained the ability to read minds of people after being trapped in the magic crystal in the teleportation labyrinth because of the teleportation incident. The side effect of that power is that she is in a dreamlike state where she is not completely awake and not able to physically speak, but thinks she is speaking due to her telepathy. Her lack of reaction to her surroundings leads others to think that she has lost all of her memories and ability to speak. She can hear the thoughts of babies and animals with this power, as she thought she was hearing Lara Greyrat and Leo speak, but in reality she was actually reading their minds. She's also unaffected by Orset's curse of being feared and hated, as noted by her remarks to everyone's reactions to him whenever Orset visits their home. Dragon God Laplace split into two beings. One important historical event in Mushoku Tensei is the division of the Dragon God Laplace into two separate beings, the Demon God Laplace and the Technique God Laplace. This split fundamentally reshaped the world's history. Demon God Laplace became associated with destruction and chaos, while the Technique God Laplace became tied to martial mastery and structured combat systems. This division is deeply connected to ancient wars involving the dragon race, the human world, and the demon tribes. The consequence of Laplace's split continues to influence modern events, including the formation of sword styles, the 7 great power rankings, and long-standing racial tensions. Layer 4. Now we are getting a bit into history lessons about the entire past before the main story of Mushoku Tensei. So let's dive in. In this layer I will use, especially in the history part, some example images, so it's not completely stale. So when you see in the left lower corner text exemplary image, then it's not directly from Mushoku Tensei. The creator. In the unrecorded times before the six-faced world was created, there existed a powerful maker of worlds, simply known as the god of creation. He was slowly dying and lasting not for much longer. He tasked himself to create one last world before his end. However, he realized he did not have enough power left to build a stable world, so the new world that he created was severely deformed and unbalanced, so he decided to create another world. This also ended in another distorted world, so he kept going until he finished making 6 worlds. The dragon world, the demon world, the beast world, the ocean world, the sky world and the human world, with a 7th void world of nothingness at the center. They were all distorted worlds which would soon collapse on its own, so the creator stuck the worlds together and was finally able to achieve stability. In this manner he established the 6-faced world, where each world supported the balance of the others. Still not content, the creator decided to carefully manage the worlds until the inhabitants can settle and stabilize. With his remaining strength, he divided his body into 6 alter egos and descended onto their respective worlds. As a result of their divine origins and diligent effort to make their world prosper, the egos came to be respected as gods by the inhabitants of each world. Then we have the 7 worlds. At the creation of his new 6-sided world, the creator ceased to exist, and from him came the new gods that came to be known throughout the 6-faced world. We have the dragon world. The dragon world is the world of dragons ruled by a dragon god, where the sky and the land are reversed. It was inhabited by a race with enormous power. The dragon race were once primitive species who were not able to develop civilization due to their harsh environment and rogue dragons. But it soon changed after the human god lent the knowledge of the humans to the dragon. The dragon race taught inhabitants of the other worlds how to manifest battle aura. Then we have the demon world that is ruled by the demon god full of miasma and mist. It was inhabited by races with extraordinary physiques. Similar to the dragon race, the demon race were primitive, and until after the human god lent the knowledge of the humans to the demon god. The demon race taught inhabitants of the other worlds how to reinforce a weak body in order to use battle aura efficiently. Then the beast world is the world of beasts, ruled by the beast god with dense forests and mountains. It was inhabited by races with keen senses and powerful talents. The beast race taught inhabitants of the other worlds how to capture and tame monsters and wild beasts. Then the ocean world, ruled by the ocean god. It was teeming with life, inhabited by races with gills, fins and scales. The ocean race taught the inhabitants of the other worlds how to purify water and how to store it. The sky world is a world of rocks floating in the sky, ruled by the sky god. It was inhabited by a winged race who flew freely in the sky. The sky race taught inhabitants of the other worlds how to study and predict weather. The human world is a world of flat land and ruled by the human god. It is inhabited by a race with weak bodies but brilliant minds. The human race taught the other inhabitants of the other worlds about the importance of reading, writing, communal living, social order, and gave the light of civilization to the races. It's clear how the naming convention is by now. The last world is the void world. That is a pure white world of nothingness formed when the god of creation stuck together the 6 worlds in a die structure. It later served as the connecting path for moving from one world to another, as it is in contact with all the worlds. It is also the channel for summoning and teleport magic. This space is where Hitogami exists. Now we have Old Dragon's Tale. Old Dragon's Tale is a prequel side story written by the author that takes place thousands of years before Rudeus is born. It focuses on the first dragon god, the dragon generals, the dragon race, and the events that shaped the entire history of the 6-faced world. Many mysteries that remain unanswered throughout the main series, including parts of the origin of Hitogami, the destruction of the original worlds, and the dragon god's plan, are explored in this story. About 20,000 to 10,000 years ago, before the 6-faced world existed in its current form, each race inhabited its own separate world governed by its respective god. The dragon world was one of the most advanced and powerful of these realms, home to the dragon race and ruled by the first dragon god. The first dragon god was powerful but not omnipotent. There were places out of his reach as well. That's why he made the 5 most powerful dragon race individuals into the dragon generals and entrusted them with protecting the world. The dragon generals were elite warriors who served under the dragon race during the ancient wars. We have the Holy Dragon General Sillard, Armored Dragon General Dora, Mad Dragon General Chaos, Dark Dragon General Maxwell, and Steel Dragon General Crystal. Each general specialized in different forms of combat or magical discipline and played a critical role in shaping the outcome of historical conflicts. Although many of them are long gone, their legacy persists through artifacts, combat techniques, and surviving descendants. Now, during the War of the Six Worlds, the Dragon World became the center of a devastating conflict. The wife of the first dragon god Lunaria was killed. The Dragon Generals give their report from their investigation of Lunaria's murder, which includes suspects from the other worlds, to which the first dragon god decides to confront them and wage war against the other worlds. Only later he learns that all of it was the deception of Hitogami. The citizens of the worlds had their worlds destroyed and were continuously chased until they escaped to the human world. Because of these events, the 5 Dragon Generals betrayed the Dragon God. The leader of the Dragon Generals teamed up together with the other 4 and battled with the exceptionally powerful Dragon God. A death match of 5 versus 1, and in the end it ended up as a tie. But the war ultimately led to the collapse of the Dragon World itself. What had once been an entire realm was reduced to ruins, and only a handful of dragons survived. This led to the human world being the last remaining world, and it became one of the greatest tragedies in the history of the six-faced world, and forever changed the balance between the races. Much of the dragon race's ancient knowledge was lost, leaving only fragments preserved by survivors like Laplace and eventually Orsted. The chaotic period, 10,000 to 8,000 years ago. The chaotic period is when the ancestors of modern humans and the refugees from the other worlds, after being thrown together, began clashing. There exists almost no literature from this period, but according to the scholars, after many years of strife, the races slowly became segregated. The beast folk began living in the woods, the water folk controlled the oceans, and the sky folk secured the highest places they could find. There were nearly no dragon folk left, but they avoided attention and lived secretly, while the void folk, who could live anywhere, spread themselves out. That left the humans and the demons to fight between themselves on the plains. At the time, the Central Continent and the Demon Continent were still joined by land and called the Great Continent. Human-Demon Wars and Laplace War. The Human-Demon Wars were 3 wars fought between the demon race and the human race. The first 2 wars were waged by the Great Demon Empress Kishirika Kishirisu, known as the Great Human-Demon War, to reign superiority over the human race. But the third war was waged by demon god Laplace in his own name, referred to as the Laplace War, as an outcome of his hatred for the human race. The first Great Human-Demon War is the first great war between the human race and the demon race, which was fought between 6,000 to 7,000 years prior to the main story. In this time, martial arts and magic were developed and the population increased. Kishirika, the Great Demon Empress, and the 5 Great Demon Kings led the demons against the humans. This war was fought before the splitting of the Central Continent and the Demon Continent, when the humans and the demons still lived in one landmass known as the Great Continent. The war lasted for approximately a millennium, repeating constantly between a state of fierce battle and relaxation. Finally, the hero of humanity, Ars, and his 6 comrades ended the long war following the defeat for the 5 Great Demon Kings and the Demon Empress Kishirika. The second Great Human-Demon War is a second great war between the human and the demon race, which was fought between 5,000 to 4,200 years prior to the main story. The Great Demon Empress Kishirika Kishirisu, seeking vengeance for a 1,000-year-old grudge, brought the beast race and ocean race to the demon side and waged war for the second time against the humans. This time the human race was pushed back and cornered, but the war still went on for several centuries without surrendering. At the time of distress of the humans, the Dragon King Laplace, or also named Golden Knight Aldebaran, joined the war to annihilate the demon army, which allowed the human army to retake their front lines. Laplace was eventually defeated by the fighting god, who was an apostle of Hitogami. On the verge of death, Laplace performed the reincarnation magic of the dragon race, but the spell went out of control and the released force of mana was so strong that it split the Great Continent into 2. Now known as the Central Continent and the Demon Continent, forming a new sea in the middle, now referred to as the Ringo Sea. This event marked the end of the second Great Human-Demon War, which lasted for about 800 years. The Laplace War was a war that was between 500 to 400 years prior to the main story. Though it lasted much shorter than the previous wars, the humans were forced into a war far more brutal than any they had fought before. The one who united all the demons of the demon continent and launched this assault against the humans was the demon god Laplace, a human-hating demon who was split from the failed reincarnation attempt of the Dragon King Laplace in the previous war. Demon god Laplace spawned approximately 1,000 years ago. In an extremely short period of time, he rallied the demons and conquered the demon continent. For many years, he cultivated his empire, building his race to be tough and fierce. After long years, he pulled the beast race and the ocean race over to his side. Laplace began his military campaign approximately 500 years ago. The invasion began from the south, drawing all the humans' military power there. Then he set his worms upon the land, making passage through the mountains impossible. After that he took the humans by storm, attacking with a separate unit from the north, scattering his enemies. In a short time he gained total control of the north and the south. Then from both directions he pressed his assault on the western region. Forced into a corner, the humans took their last gamble. The 7 heroes convinced the ocean race to lift their blockade, then set out on the seas for the Milis continent. Now allied with the demons, the beast race had taken control of the holy city of Milis. So the 7 heroes took the clan leaders' children hostage and threatened them into cooperation. The 7 heroes, leading the Holy Knights of Milis and the Beast Race, launched a decisive battle and assaulted Laplace's main stronghold. After a violent confrontation, 4 of the 7 heroes were dead, but they successfully stealed Laplace away and destroyed his closest companions. 3 heroes survived: the Dragon King Urupen, the North God Kalman, and the armored Dragon King Perugius. Though Laplace was defeated, the humans were greatly exhausted from the long battle and couldn't keep up the fight anymore. Instead, they signed a treaty with one of the demon kings who wasn't allied with Laplace, and the blockade on the demon continent was lifted. According to the terms of the treaty, racial discrimination was prohibited and demons could now freely travel to other continents. The different races now reside on different continents and places. Dragon God Orsted's time loops. One of the most important background events in the story is Orsted's looping timeline. When Orsted dies while alive, or when 200 years have passed since the beginning of the technique, he is sent back in time to the winter of year 330 of the Armored Dragon era, precisely to the northern forest of the central continent, where he starts training again. Orsted has experienced the world for more than 100 times, and Rudius is a new existence for him outside of the loops. Unlike ordinary beings, Orsted retains memories across repeated world cycles, allowing him to learn from previous failures and adjust his actions in future iterations of the timeline. Each loop brings him closer to understanding how to defeat Hitogami, but also deepens his isolation as he repeatedly loses allies and opportunities due to unavoidable events. This ability explains his cautious behavior, strategic planning, and extensive knowledge of future events. Mastering virtually every combat technique in the world, be it swordsmanship or magic, at god rank, making him the strongest character in Mushoku Tensei. Also a limited factor for Orsted is his mana problem. Orsted is unable to really go all out in combat. This is later revealed to be a side effect from the technique that the first Dragon God used on Orsted to send him forward in time and repeat the time loop until he beats Hitogami. It causes him to have extremely slow magic power restoration, thus he can't freely use magic and several of his techniques. The technique which allows him to reset when he fails a loop makes Orsted also invisible from Hitogami's view. Laplace's experiments. Before his defeat, Demon God Laplace knew that his death was inevitable. Rather than accepting permanent defeat, he developed a method to reincarnate in the distant future. Unlike ordinary reincarnation, Laplace's plan involved preserving fragments of his soul and enormous amounts of mana so that he could eventually return once the proper conditions were met. This plan has enormous implications for the world. Many political leaders, dragon race survivors, and Orsted himself spent centuries preparing for Laplace's eventual return, knowing that this resurrection could once again plunge the world into chaos. His future resurrection becomes one of the major long-term threats in the series. Pax Chirone. According to Orsted, Pax was destined to carry out a coup around the year 457, abolish the monarchy, and founded the Chirone Republic. One of his future subordinates would have been a parent of demon god Laplace's reincarnation. Pax Republic is one of the prerequisites to ensure Laplace is born there. Sadly, Pax died by killing himself in the current timeline, so the current birthplace is unknown. Fate in Mushoku Tensei. One of the most unique concepts in Mushoku Tensei is the idea of fate. Unlike destiny in many fantasy stories, fate exists as a tangible force that influences how difficult it is to change certain events. Individuals with strong fate naturally survive situations that would kill others, meet important people by coincidence, and shape history almost inevitably. Conversely, people with weak fate can disappear from history with little consequences. Even Orsted, despite experiencing countless timelines, recognized that some events are extraordinarily resistant to change because they are protected by powerful fate. However, fate is not absolute. Rudeus' arrival, the time travel diary, and certain other anomalies demonstrate that fate can be altered, although doing so often requires tremendous sacrifice. The existence of strong fate also helps explain why Hitogami often manipulates people indirectly rather than confronting them outright. He understands that fate itself can be both an ally and an obstacle. Why Hitogami fears Rudeus. By the middle of the story, it becomes increasingly clear that Hitogami is actively trying to manipulate or eliminate him. The reason is not Rudeus himself, but the future he makes possible. Through a combination of Rudeus' descendants, his alliance with Orsted, and the choices he makes after reading the time travel diary, Rudeus becomes one of the few people capable of disrupting Hitogami's constructed plans. Hitogami can view his own future and acts in his own interest to avoid his death and also boredom. Rudeus is never destined to defeat Hitogami personally. His true role is to create the conditions under which someone else eventually can. Original timeline without Rudeus. One of the more fascinating revelations in Mushoku Tensei is that there originally existed a timeline in which Rudeus Squared was never born at all, because the soul that would become Rudeus didn't originally exist in the six-phased world. Paul and Zenith's first child was stillborn. Without Rudeus, countless events unfolded very differently. Regarding Roxy and Sylphie, never meeting Rudeus, they cross paths through magic and form a bond. Roxy teaches Sylphie it, and the two become capable adventurer and dungeon explorers. They live long and accomplished lives, but never marry, living alone without the families they would have had. Eris matured along an entirely different path, never embarking on the journey across the demon continent with that end. Eris remained in the Fitoa region and eventually marries Luke Notus Greyrat. Orsed's battle against Hitogami proceeded much as it had in countless previous loops. Although Orsted retained his memories, he never encountered the unpredictable variable that is Rudeus in his timeline. The Sea and Heaven race. The only known Heaven race in the entire Mushoku Tensei story is Silveril. She is one of the 12 servants of Perugius and the only servant who isn't a summon spirit. They are able to fly with their wings and control the weather. Then there's also the Ocean race that are the original inhabitants of the ocean world. They rule the ocean, making sea travel across Ringo Sea impossible. But it is the only race in Mushoku Tensei we actually didn't see at all. Power rankings. Although the 7 grade power ranking is presented within the story, the exact relative strength of many characters is not easy to pin down. The author has occasionally explained who would win in hypothetical matchups, how certain figures compare to one another, and how situational advantages affect the battle. Factors such as the environment, preparation, compatibility, and mana reserves often matter more than the raw power. Rudeus possesses enough mana to rival even Laplace, yet his lack of physical durability and inability to withstand close-range attacks because of missing battle aura and speed prevents him from defeating the world's strongest swordsman. This was also a reason for the development of the magic armors. This imbalance is intentionally dominate battlefields and long-range engagements, while swordsmen excel in close combat. The result is a combat system in which positioning, preparation, teamwork often matter more than raw magical output. Orsted, the Dragon God, consistently holds the number 1 position, reinforcing his status as an almost unreachable standard of power. Other members of the ranking include figures tied to ancient wars, legendary artifacts, and unique combat styles. The magic armor. Recognizing his physical limitations, Rudeus eventually begins developing the magical armor. Unlike ordinary armor, the magic armor uses the mana of the user to amplify strength, speed, durability, and mobility. Over time, Rudeus creates several increasingly advanced versions, each addressing weaknesses discovered during battles. The magic armor seems a bit like a powered sci-fi suit. It blends magical theory with practical engineering. We have the magic armor MK1, the prototype created under the joint cooperation with Zanoba and Cliff. It's a little less than 3 meters high. The right hand has a stone Gatling cannon and the left hand has a shield and a magic absorption stone. Although its mana consumption was quite high, it was considered to hold defensive and offensive powers similar to that of the 7 great world powers. It was specifically created in order to fight Dragon God Orsted, though it was still kept in use after that. It was destroyed by the fighting god during the Battle of Bihiril Kingdom. Then we have the Magic Armor MK2. It was a complete set that could be separated into different parts such as arms, legs, torso. It was a jet black armor and helmet, a smaller version of the MK1, and if worn it provided physical abilities similar to that of a Saint ranked swordsman. Then we have the Magic Armor MK0, the decisive battle weapon of Rudius created for the Battle of Bihiril Kingdom. It is a stronger version of the MK1, although it consumes double the mana. Last but not least, the Magic Armor MK3, the magic armor used by Rudius during his last years. Its height was a little more than 2 meters and its ability was the same as the MK1. This magic armor became the base for the mass production of the all-purpose magic armor series later on. Rudius' achievements and power level. Now we're getting into Rudius' achievements over the course of his life. There are probably a lot more than these, but they are the most memorable. Rudius is capable of casting explosion magic on unofficial god class scale that was acknowledged by Orsted in his fight against him. Even with Orsted opening the first Dragon Gate to tremendously lower its power, the explosion was still packed with powers similar to Laplace. Fans are funnily calling it the nuclear explosion. He is a Water Emperor class magician and a Saint class magician in fire, earth, wind, healing and detoxification magic. He can use voiceless incantations with attack magic. He and his group are the conquerors of the S-rank teleportation labyrinth. He is also Dragon God Orsted's subordinate and ally. Then we have Immortal Demon Lord Atov that has a bad habit of kidnapping strong people she has an interest in and forcing them to work as her personal guards with 2 years of break after 10 years. He refused that and kind of defeated Atove, which is about the strength of a North Emperor swordsman. Only 2 people have ever defeated Atov and earned her respect, the first being Kalman I and the second is Rudius. At the end he is ranked 7th of the 7 great powers with the title Quagmire by defeating Kalman III. Layer 5. Now we are getting into the last layer, starting it off with Lara's destiny. Before Rudius and Roxy were married, Hitogami tried to get rid of Roxy many times, first by telling Rudius to get a demon eye from Kishirika, leading him to avoid meeting Roxy in Windport. He then attempted to stop him from going to the teleport labyrinth to save Zenith and Roxy, which failed because of Rudius and Roxy having a strong fate. Hitogami also manipulated Rudius later in the story by bringing him into a situation that would end up with Roxy falling ill and dying due to magic stone disease while Roxy is pregnant with Lara, but this was prevented by the intervention of his future self appearing. Hitogami confronted Rudius in his dreams because of this and angrily told him the future. Lara would, along with Rudius' descendants, ally with Orsted to kill Hitogami. Among all of Rudius' children, Lara Greyrat is repeatedly singled out as someone with an extraordinary future. Even before her birth, multiple characters including Kishirika and Orsted hint that Lara possesses an exceptionally powerful destiny. While the main series never fully depicts this future, numerous hints suggest that she will likely become one of the central figures of the awaited sequel. She is also the hero that Sacred Beast Leo guards, with a fate strong enough to steal the destiny from the original hero of all of Orsted's previous loops. Aisha and R's controversies. One of the most controversial chapters in the Mushoku Tensei franchise comes from the original Redundancy web novel. Rudius' son Ars develops a romantic relationship with Aisha Greyrat, his aunt. The relationship sparked significant backlash among readers, obviously due to the familial connection and its portrayal. As a result, the author removed the chapter from the original web novel, saying that he wanted to revise the material rather than treat it as definitive canon. Years later, when Redundancy began receiving official light novel releases, the storyline was rewritten and substantially altered. Hitogami's Apostles. Throughout Mushoku Tensei, Hitogami doesn't act directly, instead he relies on apostles, ordinary people whom he contacts through dreams and manipulates into carrying out actions that further his goals. Some apostles never realize they are being used. Hitogami typically presents himself as a benevolent figure, offering helpful advice or warning them of future dangers. His guidance often appears beneficial in the short term, making it easy for his apostles to trust him. Rather than commanding them outright, Hitogami carefully nudges individuals toward decisions that create favorable outcomes decades later. Besides early story Rudius, Hitogami has many different apostles. I will talk a bit about the known ones. First we have Bardigadi. He returned wearing the fighting god armor and declaring himself a sworn friend and apostle of Hitogami. Bardigadi as fighting god was vastly powerful and was able to overpower combined efforts of Rudius and allies, but ultimately got defeated. Even though he says that he only agreed to help human god once, it was decided that he is to be sealed in a god-class barrier, with his consciousness still intact, until the human god is destroyed. Bardigadi himself thinks that this is for the best. Luke Notus Greyrod. During the events of Volume 17, Luke is visited by Hitogami. He was tricked with vague reasons to consider Rudius his enemy, along with advice about keeping Ariel safe. It is heavily implied that Hitogami also tells him things about Pilemon Notus Greyrat, Luke's father, deceiving him about his father's position with Ariel's faction. Ariel was fortunately able to bring him back to his senses. Kishirika Kishirisu. She revealed the truth about the fighting god and that she and Bardigadi were formerly Hitogami's apostles before the human-demon Great War, and told Rudius to be wary of Bardigadi due to him still feeling indebted to Hitogami. She promised Rudius that she would help him with anything as long as it doesn't involve Hitogami because she hates him. Then we have Darius Silva Ganius. He is suspected to be behind the true kidnapping of Eris at the beginning. He thought Saurus Boreas Greyrat was a fool for wanting to use the entire Boreas fortune on rebuilding Fitoa, so he persuaded Pilemon Notus Greyrat into action and caused Saurus to be blamed for the teleport incident, which led to his execution. Darius is one of the Hitogami apostles and he was behind every attack against Ariel. He would repeatedly send assassin attempts to any noble that would side themselves with Ariel, which caused some of them to switch sides to the first Prince Grable. In Volume 17, after he was exposed by Tristina and Ariel, his political position was greatly reduced as he was going to be punished for his crimes of kidnapping and abusing Tristina. But Radar came to his rescue and ordered Auber to carry him to safety, but he was ultimately chased down and killed by Rudius, Ghislaine and Eris. Ghislaine was allowed to deliver the final blow to Darius as he was the one who ordered Saurus to be executed, which was the person Ghislaine wanted to avenge. Then we have Radar Rhea. After criticizing North Emperor Auber for his own failure to complete his mission, she orders him to kill Ariel, Perugius and Rudius while maintaining her technique. As everyone remains still, horrified Isolde arrives to the scene, but Radar stops her in her tracks as well, adding in that a novice knight is to cut her down after the assassination job is finished. After sensing that Orsted is coming, she orders Uber to take Darius and escape, but Ariel questions her why. She talks about how the man god came to her in a dream and convinced her to repay her debt to Darius from long ago. When Orsted arrives, Radar asks Orsted if he has come to kill her and he confirms it. Orsted starts to move then into her effective range and she starts to counterattack. Her slashes grow much more powerful and faster, but Orsted blocks all of her attacks using his bare hands and kills her with one blow to the heart. Despite Radar claiming to be the sole perpetrator on the assassination attempt on Ariel, many nobles sympathized with her and Ariel did not want the Water God style to become her enemy. So the Water God style training halls remained and Isolde's name was clear too. Then you have Vita. Vita was a blue slime-like creature and an enemy of the death god Laxus. Hitogami helped him to escape to the divine continent Labyrinth Netherworld. He was one of the apostles in the final battle in the Beherial Kingdom. When he tried to use his illusion techniques against Rudius, he was killed by the bone ring of Laxus, a ring made by the death god Laxus to counter him. Rudius received the ring from the current death god Randolph. Then last but not least we have Geese. Geese is an adventurer Rudius met while he was being held captive by the Dorudia tribe. He was a member of Paul and Zenith Greyrat's former party. Geese is also the last survivor of the demon race Nuka tribe, which was wiped out due to Hitogami's schemes. In Volume 21 he meets up with Rudius and his family in Milicion. He goes to Cliff's house to meet up with Zenith and take her around town. but apparently mistakenly hands Zenith over to a servant of the Latrea house who Rudius was currently on bad terms with. Rudius gets Zenith back and has Zenith examined by the Miko. Before they return to Cliff's house, he left a letter with Aisha for Rudius, where he is revealing that he was Hitogami's apostle all along, and that he was saved by Hitogami many times when he was small and he decided to become his apostle until he repaid his debt. The letter declared his intention to fight Rudius head-on with his own forces that he will gather, which ultimately culminates into the final big battle of the main story. Hitogami's real identity. Hitogami's exact origin is unknown. It is known that after the creator god's death, unknown to anyone, he was born inside the Void World. At some point in the distant past, the being who would come to be known as Hitogami killed or otherwise usurped the original human god and took his form. He then began manipulating the first dragon god and his 5 dragon generals into destroying the other 4 worlds, and then proceeded to help the survivors of those ruined worlds to flee into the human world. When the 5 dragon generals turned on the dragon god and weakened him, Hitogami took that opportunity to strike a fatal blow to the first dragon god and then destroy the dragon world. However, before Hitogami's victory was completed, the dying dragon god used the last of his power to trap Hitogami within the Void World. He is a sworn enemy of Orsted, as he was the one that caused the fall of the first dragon god, Orsted's father. Despite not being able to physically manifest in the human world, he was still pulling the strings from behind the scenes by appearing in people's dreams, manipulating them as apostles. During the second Great Human-Demon War, he convinced Bodyguardi to steal the golden armor from dragon god Laplace and fight him head-on, resulting in the huge explosion that formed the Ringu Sea and Laplace being split into the 2 beings. Ultimately, Rudius did see a vision where his daughter Lara helped Orsted and an unknown individual, presumably Shinohara Akito, reach his realm to finally kill him. Differences between the light novel and web novel. I will put the big changes and extra chapters here on the screen for you to see. Although the light novel follows the same overall story as the original web novel, the light novel is a more polished final draft of the web novel. There are some differences, ranging from small dialogue changes to entirely new arcs and character development. The light novel also expands political subplots, develops side characters in greater detail, and adds many new extra chapters from other characters' perspectives. The biggest addition of all is Volume 7, which doesn't exist in the web novel. This volume bridges the gap between the ending of Dead End's journey after the teleportation incident and Rudius' enrollment at the Ranoa Magic University, showing his depression, his time as an adventurer quagmire, and his emotional recovery after Ares leaves him. In the web novel, readers jump almost directly from Ares' departure to their university arc, making Rudius' emotional state feel far more abrupt. Then there are also very nice illustrations and concept art galleries at the end of each volume. Overall, the light novel is considered the definitive version of Mushoku Tensei, with the anime adapting it now. Rudius' soul after death. The series confirms that Rudius' soul originated from another world, but what happens after his death remains a bit unclear. The only event we see is him slowly fading away after talking with Hitogami for the last time. Hitogami says that a soul would normally just turn back into mana, mix with other mana and be reconstituted into something else. But because Rudius is from another world, he doesn't know what happens with him. Content with his life, Rudius' last words before disappearing are, "See you around." Playback Miku and Shinohara Akihito. Now we are coming to the biggest mystery and characters on this iceberg. The playback Miku is the most mysterious character in Mushoku Tensei. Her real name is Lilia, and her power was the ability to rewind time of an object to a maximum of 24 hours. She was born in the Armored Dragon calendar, year 500. Regardless of the timeline, the playback Miku is born in a countryside and is shunned by adults and children. At the age of 5, soldiers would take her away, and she is usually captured, imprisoned, and passed between rulers until she dies at the age of 10 or even earlier. She is able to divert death and disease. Because of that, she is wanted by the nations. Regardless of her abilities, no matter what she did, she could not change her fate. Over the course of centuries, she attempted to change her destiny, but could never end the hellish loop of her birth and death. She would always reach horrible deaths. In one playback, she is used in a magic formation, and the boy Shinohara Akito is summoned to serve as the kingdom's hero. The boy was different, and since she was able to understand him, she helped him and fell in love with him. But because he was no hero, but just a normal high school boy, without any training or powers, During a battle with an enemy kingdom he was beheaded, and by the time that Lilia found him 24 hours have already passed, and it was too late for her to revive him. Due to the emotional impact of losing Akito, Lilia opened a rift in time and space in the past so that she and Akito could live together, and the world looped with the girl as the core. This rift appeared in the past, year 400, in the skies of the city of Hoa, where the boy had died. The Miko tried to summon a soul with a strong relationship with the boy, with the same wish as the girl who wanted to live together with him. But the power of the world was too strong for her. After some time, a stray soul from Japan passed through the rift and got into the body of a baby named Rudius Grey Rat in the year 407. His soul changed the world, weakening its resistance. Lilia used all of her remaining power and summoned Nanahoshi Shizuka in the year 417, causing the mana calamity in the middle of Hoa. Nanahoshi was also a friend with the Shinohara Akito in her original world, where our protagonist saves both of them from the truck. That is how they are connected and summoned by Lilia. A few years after Rudius' death, in the year 481, the Miku was reborn, drained from her powers, unable to loop again. In volume 22, Nanahoshi also created a hypothesis that Shinohara Akito was also summoned to this world, but was summoned into the future where he saved a weak-fated Miku that was destined to die. Akihito possibly saved that Miku and met with Orsted as Nanahoshi did to create a device that could amplify the Miku's power to change the past. If the future is changing the past, the future would take precedence and be the reason why Nanahoshi can't go back to her world, since she may have been summoned by Akihito during the teleportation incident, so that she can create the multiverse teleportation device and go back to her world with him in the future. Since her future self that went back with Akihito can't exist if she went back to her world in the present, Akihito's influence interfered with the device when she was attempting to go home. Summarized, Akihito collaborated with Orsted and was able to determine the reason why he would be unable to win against Hitogami. Akihito altered the past with the saved Miku's amplified power, which may have been the reason Hitogami saw a vision of Rudius' descendants, with Orsted and an unknown man killing Hitogami, and that the unknown man might be Akihito. Then in order to go back home, he caused a mana calamity that summoned Nanahoshi, so that she would create a device that would send them back to their world. Well, at least it is pretty certain that this is a closed loop, so if Orsted ever loops again, there will be no Rudius again. So this is kind of the origin story of Mushoku Tensei's timeline, as we know. There are some theories how exactly all of this plays out, and I think it is a little bit confusing, but it all makes also kind of sense. Now there are still some questions like how and why was Shinohara Akito summoned in the first place? Was it random or is there a special reason? What was Orsted's role in all of this? Maybe some questions will be answered in a hopefully future sequel. So we finally reached the end of the Mushoku Tensei Iceberg video. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new or interesting from this. Keep looking forward for the next videos and have a great day. Bye.